I fully acknowledge that going in public settings automatically has the risk of ignorant people thinking that they have an opportunity to speak up and belittle me, but I'm not going to let that stop me from doing things that I want or need to do, or especially have a right to do. Hello again, fellers. Hello again, dwellers. Welcome to another episode of Dwell On It, a series where I, Taylor, answer your questions about my lived experience as a trans woman. If you have any questions of your own that you would like to have answered in a future episode, please make sure to include them in the comments or by DM, and I will make sure to add them to a grab bag to get drawn out randomly for a future episode, as I mentioned. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe. Dwell On It gets uploaded weekly with a new episode, and there's also life projects too that I include in the channel whenever I get around to those things, whether they're advocacy projects or other miscellaneous projects too, so you can stay up to speed by staying subscribed. Of course, if you enjoy the content, please make sure to hit like. What liking does is gives a little bit of a nudge and a bump to algorithms, just so that other individuals with similar interests and tags and so on will be able to see these videos show up in their feed, their homepage, and so on, just to get that message out a little further. And that's the part where I need you too. Please make sure to share this video and every other video that you watch too on your platforms, whether it's your socials or even if it's by people you talk to personally. I say this time and time again, but I'm only able to reach who I'm able to reach, and that's where I need you to do me a huge favor and expand that communication. Share the message on your own socials or however else you choose to communicate with your peers or your platforms. Help get more people introduced to the channel, help get more people introduced to the messages, help get more people introduced to the learning and the education, and honestly, sometimes let people learn and discover some fun and some nuances and all those other crazy little things that happen with being a human being, which is what the whole point of Dwell On It is about, to help normalize the conversation, help normalize the experience, and just help people get a better understanding when it comes to trans individuals, especially in the social and political climate that we're in today. I want to include a quick visual description as usual. So again, as usual, I'm in my living room / gym / office, beige walls, midday, yada yada yada. Same thing as almost every other episode since I started doing something like this. I've got my long blonde hair, naturally wavy. It's out. It's pretty much just past my armpits at this point. There's a small, medium, and large piercing going underneath my right eye, going outwards towards a cluster earring on the top of my right ear. The color palette that I'm wearing for my makeup is based on green and brown in that setup because I do get dressed like a Power Ranger more often than not. I am wearing a brown t-shirt. I'm a 6'1" white trans woman. I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is Treaty 1 territory. Otherwise, I think that sums things up really quickly, so we can get started in this week's episode and see what the grab bag has in store for us. Are there any events that you wish you had a video of? Honestly, if anything, I'm not really that type of person to capture things on videos or pictures. In a past life, I used to, because I thought that was kind of just the thing that I was supposed to do. I'm not really a big fan of those because I already have it in my head, right? Like, I can remember whatever it is that I was at or however it went and how it made me feel. The only time that I would ever capture things like that is if I have an intent to share it, and usually that's something that's not really my style anyway too. Now that's it. Sports, that's a bit of a different story. There were more than enough times where I did a play, or honestly even sometimes flubbed a play, that I wish that I had video to either see it, watch it again, or learn from it, which is something how I've always been. And believe me, there was a period of time where I was having a little bit of a slump in one season of softball. I was struggling at the plate for whatever reason. I was seriously considering getting a GoPro just to attach to the cage or something like that when I would go up to bat, so I can just watch how I'd be approaching the plate, how I'd be approaching the game, to see if I could figure out what it was that was having me in that slump. But you know what? It's the same sort of thing on the opposite too of great times. You know, you make a great play or a great catch, it would just be awesome to get that highlight reel and, you know, just have some fun with it. That's really it though. I don't really have any super memorable events of things that I've been at and wish I had a recording of it. I remember cleaning up my phone and my computer not terribly long ago from old pictures and videos, and I'd see videos from concerts or whatever. I'm like, oh, what do I have this for? You know, walking around the zoo, and I'm like, what's anything that wasn't a terrible quality I kept, but still I had questions like, why did I record these things again? Because it's kind of pointless to me. You know, I don't understand why I was recording things that I was already recording in my own head. You know what I mean? That's about it. As a trans person, what does old age mean to you? This is hilarious. I turned 41 on June 7th. Honestly, I kind of don't even know what old age has in terms of language anymore. Like, I understand there's the societal expectation of what getting old is, but honestly, if it amounts to anything, especially as I've aged and matured, and literally as a trans individual, and especially becoming so much more conscious of inclusion, of diversity, and all the different types of vulnerable communities, ageism absolutely is a type of discrimination. I acknowledge when people are older, no question about that, but to define someone's ability, capability, or create limitations for them specifically based on their age is wrong. It's harmful, as a matter of fact. I don't really have an answer to that anymore. If anything, that I know if I have to attach the word old age to myself, I would just be at a point of acknowledging that my body is in a different place than where my head is, for example. What I mean is this, and I literally was just talking about sports in the last question. I said this tongue-in-cheek time and time again, and I'll still say it. I would go play, beach volleyball, or I would go ahead and I'd play softball, or whatever it would be, and I'd go ahead and I would put everything on the line every single play, because that's the type of person that I am, and I would feel it after. Don't get me wrong, right? You feel sore, you feel hurt, you wonder why you did this, that, or the other thing when it was an absolute nothing play, or however it goes. I'm just inherently competitive like that, and I would still joke that I would still play the game like I'm 23, even though that my body is like, you're not 23 anymore. So that's kind of where I would imagine how old age would apply to myself, at least, that when it gets to a point where I feel, so much more youthful and more capable of doing something that I was able to do as I was younger, and the body says, no, this isn't happening today, that's what old age would mean to me. Did transitioning excite or scare you? This is a solid question, and the answer is neither. Transitioning was accepting a reality. Transitioning is often part of addressing desperation, I think, is a really good way to put it. Transitioning is, for many people, kind of hand in hand with desperation. When you're in a desperate situation, you're already scared, and it's kind of difficult to be excited during those times. That said, I can understand how some individuals would feel limited because of this, that, or the other thing happening in their life, and they know that they want to transition. But when those opportunities finally materialize for them to transition and they can be excited for that, for sure. I can see how people would get excited for that. When it comes to being scared, the fear of transition was not from transitioning. It was the fear of feeling like I had to do it all by myself. It was a feeling of, now that I am exposing my vulnerabilities to the world, now that I am allowing myself to be authentic, and so on, that the people who I had in my life who presented themselves as meaningful to me will leave. And then I will have no meaningful people. My support would be gone. My comfort of feeling like I'm included and had a place of belonging would be gone. That I would be rejected, that I would be dismissed, that I would be ignored, so on. Those are all things that I would be afraid of, but I also knew those were byproducts of transitioning. It wasn't about the transitioning itself, because I knew that finally having comfort and being at peace with my sense of self, I couldn't be afraid of that. But I spent so much time wondering, is this it? Is this going to be worth it? Is this going to finally bring me joy? Because as I mentioned not terribly long ago, for many people, myself included, transitioning is a response to desperation. And my fear, aside from the social things that I was talking about, would be what happens if I'm still desperate? If transitioning is supposed to bring me joy, what happens if I don't have joy? Right? That was a fear. That was something that was certainly on my mind. No questions asked. Has anyone stopped you from using the bathroom? Are you scared of that if it hasn't happened yet? I'm aware that there's a non-zero probability that it can happen, but I have not experienced it yet. I want to acknowledge a few things. I know I've said numerous videos in the past that I have had a bit of a unique transition, in the sense that I transitioned essentially on my couch because of the timing when it comes to COVID. I'm also a very introverted individual as a whole. I'm an INFJ personality type, if anyone's into that type of stuff. So as much as I do enjoy my socializing and whatnot, I absolutely do love my alone time, my personal space, and so on. I don't have a ton of social experience as many other people to be put into those situations when it comes to using a bathroom. Work from home, for example, I don't really have many places to be aside from the basic essentials or the one-offs when it comes to socializing with people who are close and trusted to me and stuff like that. So I haven't had a lot of those obscure moments of just being somewhere and using the washroom. That's not to say that I haven't been in situations that I have used public washrooms. I'm not afraid of people trying to stop me for a few reasons. One, I'm grateful that living in Canada, it's not as pronounced as it is in other areas of the world, but I'm fully conscious of the fact that even though I'm aware our borders are different, a lot of individuals, especially TERFs and bigots, don't. But I'm not letting their ignorance stop me from taking a leak. I'm not going to let their ignorant and abusive behavior stop me from, letting my body acknowledge a bad taco, for example. Stuff like that. I haven't experienced anything like that. I'm not scared of it. I don't allow myself to be scared of it. I can't walk in fear. I can't live in fear. I fully acknowledge that going in public settings automatically has the risk of ignorant people thinking that they have an opportunity to speak up and belittle me. But I'm not going to let that stop me from doing things that I want or need to do, or especially have a right to do. If it amounts to anything as well, and frankly, this actually reminds me of something kind of funny from a much earlier episode that I'm going to put right here. But nonetheless, when I'm in a public setting, I do maintenance, right? Let's just call a little bit of maintenance, and sometimes that maintenance is inconvenient to deal with. And so knowing that I don't want to have to deal with that maintenance more than I have to, I also am mindful about what I consume when I am out and about. I don't have a lot of food and I don't have a lot of beverage, especially if I know that I'm not going to be back home anytime in the near future, let's put it that way. So I don't want to put myself into a position to use the bathroom as well. I'm not afraid of using the bathroom because of people. I just don't want to use the bathroom because I really don't feel like dealing with a whole bunch of tape. Does that make sense? What are your best recommendations for allies to know about? That's really simple, as a matter of fact. Guide to Allyship.com is the first thing that I can think of. I'll put a link in the description for that. It's also sounding exactly like I said, guide to Allyship.com. It's a fantastic resource that's a really good way for individuals who want to be allies to get a better understanding about what it takes to be an ally. And it starts with not badging yourself as an ally. You don't get to call yourself an ally. The people who you are allies to will call you an ally when you show them your allyship. So guide to Allyship.com. It's the first thing that I would recommend. It is such an easy read. Off the top of my head, it was developed by a Black individual who experienced two things in the same day from the same individual. One, having a mindful conversation about privilege and the difference in individuals and what they're able to access and rights and so on, and then experiencing racism from that exact same individual towards them. So that led to developing the guide to Allyship.com website. Great, simple, easy to read, easy to share too. It's going to be in the description. If there's others that I can think of off the top of my head, I'll make sure to include them too. I know there's a couple videos of mine too that are compilations and possibly even really good aha moments, perhaps we can say, for individuals who would like to know more about, if not about how to be an ally, but about how it is important for allyship to really get brought forward. So I'm going to make sure to include those as well. The first one that I can think of off the top of my head would be the Trans Awareness Week video, and so I'm going to put that right here. The reason why I want to recommend that is not necessarily about the video itself, as much as I, of course, encourage as many people to watch it as possible, but the body of the description is so loaded with links and information and lots of news articles, and more importantly, at the very end of it is starting to get into segments about how allies can step up and help trans individuals too. I strongly recommend, if you have not watched that video yet, to please create the time to watch it. It is longer. It is a 2-hour long video, but it's also a recap of everything that's been happening against the trans community over the previous year when I published that video. So create the time, check it out. And as I mentioned, the back end of it is when it really starts to step up about how to get allies a little more informed and included on being the allies that we need that desperately. So this was a fun series, and I'm going to wrap up on that note. And as I mentioned at the beginning, if you'd like to have questions of your own answered in a future episode, please make sure to include them in the comments or DMs. What I also said at the beginning too still applies. If you enjoyed the content, please make sure to hit like. Please, please, please hit like, because that helps make sure that other individuals have a chance to see this content as well, and I need your help for that. And also, as I mentioned, to share the content. If you're able to help share the message, that means that my message goes farther than who I currently have access to, and we can't get this message out farther unless more people get to see it. So please like, please share. If you haven't subscribed yet and you do enjoy this content, please make sure to subscribe. In the description as well is going to be a link to a campaign hosted by New Mode, and what it is a call to action to encourage your political leaders and your elected officials to incentivize your businesses, organizations, and companies in your neighborhood, in your area, in your jurisdiction to optimize their corporate social responsibilities so they can do their part to help create a great and safe community for the vulnerable individuals who live in the community too. It is very important for corporate social responsibilities to be acknowledged, for people in the vicinity to be able to feel welcome and also feel uplifted too. Otherwise, I think this is a good opportunity to wrap up, so let's finish with this. If you have not yet, please like, please share, please subscribe. Have a great rest of your night. Have a great rest of your week. As always, and I'll talk to you later.